It's a huge puzzle we're trying to put together. Well, he heard something walk up and pick up the grill. Then that dog bayed off again in a weird way. My name is Shane Church, and when I was a kid, my stepfather, actually my father, would watch In Search of and those kinds of shows with Leonard Nimoy as the host. And I remember seeing the Patterson that footage, the Patterson Gimlin footage, and it just kind of stuck with me. Just kind of left an imprint in the brain. And then years and years later, when I turned 40, I was like, I need an adventure. And I went through my brain Rolodex and I was like, let's go check out this Bigfoot phenomenon. And I ended up meeting some guys in a Bigfoot group. And then that Bigfoot group operated a certain way that wasn't, I don't know. We weren't feeling it. Like there were 6 of us. We weren't feeling it. We were kind of private messaging and talking. We did this for weeks. And then we decided to form our own group, which is Southern Bigfoot Alliance. And I didn't know after 18 months after creating that group that we were going to come up on some footprints through a young hunter that was morel mushroom hunting, and nobody discloses their morel mushroom hunting locations. That's like a no-no. But Brian, my buddy and co-admin, just got into that area. He talked to her, and I don't know if he's just a silver-tongued devil or what, but he got in there and cast 2 prints. And I went out there the following weekend, which was like the next day. I think it was Friday. He went out there in spring of 2018. It was in May. And it blew my mind because the first instance of actually seeing these tracks, it showed toe movement because it stepped off a bridge, and the 4 little toes on the left foot, and in anticipation of hitting the ground, they were like in a way as like when we step out of the shower and like our toes kind of anticipate hitting the ground. And the only reason I say that is because then there was a right foot, and then that left foot hit the flat ground after stepping off the bridge, and all those toes were aligned. So I was like, that's screaming organic, not hoax. It was just amazing. And ever since then, we've intervaled out there. We've camped out there. We've been out there, I don't know how many times. I live in Texas. This is in Oklahoma. It's like 2 hours and some change from my house. But we just started going out there in intervals, setting up cameras. I think we caught eye shine once, but I swear these things can see the game cameras with a IR light or something like that. I don't know, because we don't have a specimen, right? We can't go up and ask one because no one's dissected one, right? I mean, it's just a speculative. But you just got to kind of like put together the pieces what makes sense. And
Hi, I'm Linda Eastburn of Linda Eastburn YouTube channel, and I have a new book out called Threshold to Encounters. It's about 40 years of research and experience with all of these wild cryptids that many of you I know have encountered yourself. You can find it on Amazon.com.
4 times we've cast tracks out there out of 6 years. So that's a lot of work. It's a lot of patience, persistence. As recent, let's see, was it March? We found Brian and another one of our guys went out there and they found tracks going northwest, and we've always found them coming southeast. So they're coming and going. And not only was it the toe movement, I think it was the fact that sticks, rocks, and the like, when they're stepping, it's going into their tissue, and that's the impression that's left in the ground. We cast it, and so you see here. I'll show you. You'll see. This is a replica. I don't hold the originals up to the camera because I actually broke a replica one time doing this. But right here.
Yeah, pull it back a little bit. It's kind of dark. Pull it back. Yeah, move it back toward you.
See that?
We can see it better that way. Yeah, I can see it.
So there's like this hole. There's like this hole in the foot. And I really didn't realize what that was um, until I made a rubber silicone. I built a clay dam around our original and poured rubber silicone so I can make replicas, which that's what that is. But when I did that, it revealed what was sticking in the foot. I don't know if you can see this. Let's see if we can see that little, right? It's right here. It's like a stick or a rock edge. I don't know exactly what it was, but what it is like it's embedded into the creek. And when it stepped on it, that's the impression that was left because that went into the tissue. That screams organic. Um, there's just too many instances of toe movement. It's sticks and whatnot going into the foot when they're stepping on it. It's outstanding.
This area that you go into and you found a lot of tracks there. How often do you get up there to investigate?
Well, like I said, we go in intervals each month. I try to make it up there like twice a month, and there's quite a few of us.
And you've been
So
doing that for about 6 years.
6 years, yeah.
And you found four tracks.
4 times we've cast tracks. We have 12 in all.
But they're
20 inch
really
and
good. They're
16 inch.
really good prints up there. So you know they're in the area, but you think they're
Mhm.
migrating through there is one of the reasons you don't have a lot of evidence other than these tracks occasionally. You think
Yeah,
there's a lot of
yeah.
movement.
I think it's their pathway. And there's a small town nearby, and if you go and talk to those folks, this has been going on for years. There was a gentleman that cast some tracks out there at least 2 years ago before we even started. So like 8 years ago. And what was funny about his is from the spring tracks that Brian cast. So this guy cast this, I believe it's the same individual as they say. Um, on the hill, there's this little callus, hill injury. I don't know what it is, but when Brian cast it, it's about this big. And then we found the same individual in January of 2019 with the same callus or whatever that is on the hill. So we're like, it's the same exact animal or individual going through that area. Uh, but the guy before us that cast it 2 to plus years before us, that whatever that was smaller. So it's like we're actually seeing like real life what tissue that is doing on the bottom of their feet. It's wild. And what's funny is when you start putting this kind of information out, you get certain folks from TV shows that want to immediately call it a hoax or it's fake or the anatomy's not right. Well, that's impossible to know because there's not like a foot that got cut off that we're all studying. It's impossible to say that the anatomy is not right. Um, we've got one where, and it's awesome. I wish I should send you the PDF of our presentation. It'll explain all this, and I will do that
Okay,
after
good.
this.
Yeah,
And
let's just go ahead and go through with our interview for now because I don't have it at the moment. But
right.
so they're moving from somewhere up in Oklahoma and they're headed south
Mm-hmm.
toward Texas, Louisiana, down that direction. Is that what you're? How far of a span do you think they're going?
That I don't know. I've heard different theories, like they have like a I don't know 500-mile radius. The radiuses differ. So like on a map, I've put here's where our tracks are, and I've done these miles of radiuses uh, just from the center point of that trackway, just to see if we can find where they're going. And I think that's going to be very difficult because when they step off that bridge, which is not a huge bridge, it's just a little bridge that goes down a dirt road. Um, for instance, in January, when there's a 20-inch track leaving individual stepped off the bridge, but then it stepped up on the hard stuff and went down about 5 to 6 yards, and then it went across the creek. I mean, it could have stayed right there and just left tracks all the way down the creek and then crossed it. But for some reason, it made me think that there's some intelligence going like, hey, I'm going to leave this track here, but crap, I'm going to go over here so they can't track me, which is ridiculous because we found the track down the creek. And the two tracks down the creek that are at the edge was almost like a stutter step because this individual was leaving a 5 foot and some change stride in between steps. And then you got these two real close steps. And I'm like, that looks like a stutter step like we do before we like jump over a crack, or, like when you're a kid and you run, you like, and you like jump over a crack or something. Because on the other side in the bank was so you got this left foot on this side of the creek. And then when it landed on its left foot in the bank, it went through the bank. I mean, we cast all the toes going through the mud. And not only that, but the toes are bending like this. And on the other side of the creek, they were like this, they were straight. Comes off, boom. And that just screams mid-tarsal hinge, mid-tarsal break. It's just our evidence is obvious. Just look at it. It's really that simple. We haven't had to.
So, do you know of anyone else that, well, let me go back. There's another question I want to ask. You obviously know this one being is making its way, migrating through there periodically. Have you seen any evidence that there's more than one, or is it just this one being?
Yes, ma'am. There's possible 4, but we know there's 3. There's one that leaves 20-inch tracks. There's 2 that leave 16-inch tracks, and they differ because of their toes. Their toes look different. Their big toe especially. One of them almost has like a spade-shaped toe, and the other one's very bulbous. And we think it's a unit. I think there's 2 20-inch track leaving individuals because the one that went down and crossed the creek, I don't know where it went. We got on hard ground, and it's pretty spacious out there in that area as far as the trees go. And then the other one kind of went around the bend of that dirt road onto a hard surface. I know there's 3, but there could be 4.
Exactly. They usually, especially if they're in a migrate like that, you would think that there would be more than one for sure. Has anyone else in the area? I know you said that someone else got tracks. Has anyone actually ever seen one in that kind of corridor?
Okay, so every time we go there, I stop at all the gas stations. Wherever I go near that little town, I talk to people. People have given me phone numbers, and I actually did talk to a gentleman who has 6 siblings that live in and around that area. And his nephew was hog hunting in that area where we've cast tracks. He had 2 dogs. They came upon one. He said it turned and roared at him. His dogs took off, which he never found again. He never found his dogs. His dogs took off. He took off, and it was so shaken because he was night hunting that his uncle had to come pick him up because he physically could not drive. But anytime you meet a local, you're like, yeah, you've seen Bigfoot around here. We've been kind of researching the area for this many years. They're like, oh yeah, it's like nothing off their back. It's like we've been hearing that forever. It's just like become part of their culture.
Yeah, it's nothing new in that area because they're so familiar with it. In that southeast part of Oklahoma, I've done several interviews with people that it's a pretty common thing for them to know that there's Bigfoot out there, and often they see them or some evidence of them. It's a pretty hot spot area.
Yeah, well, that's southeast. We do that too. This is southwest Oklahoma.
Oh, southwest. Okay, so that's a different story. Don't have too many stories in the southwest Oklahoma area. But it's a wooded area. Is this a conservation area, or is this all private property?
It is public hunting grounds. If you look at all the green belts and all the waterways, it does go to bigger, vaster areas of forestry. But then you also have this huge power line situation that we kind of discovered. I mean, not discovered, it's huge. We ended up going to Chickasha to a private property. It's 500 acres. They've had so many encounters out there as a family. So like, this is a family owned property. There's a few neighbors out there. They all call what they see out there the blur, because all they see is a black blur. That's what they call it, the blur. And we got back on their 500 acres, and we noticed that it just runs right into this huge power line situation with like 4.5 foot Johnson grass for miles. It just looks like a huge traveling corridor for like anything. And what was funny is that actually ran close by to where we cast these tracks. And there's a gentleman that lives in that little town, and his son had I guess he's been watching Bigfoot, shows and whatnot. And he kind of found it looked like a little enclosure, like something just very odd looking out of the normal, not normal tree fall, just a bent up little branched enclosure. And so we went and checked it out. And this guy's actually got a natural spring on his property. But you know what else he has on his property? That power line. It runs right into his property and through it. And we're like, well, how far does that go? And man, it even goes all the way to Anadarko. And Anadarko's had lots of activity. So it's a huge puzzle we're trying to put together. And I think these things can travel for miles. I mean, normal animals do. So
they use that the clearing beneath that power line as a travel means, or what does the power line have to do with them?
It's just it's a open, secluded area that an elephant can walk through, and nobody's going to see it unless it leaves a big gap in the Johnson grass.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's a super highway for game.
Yeah, so it's basically a highway for them, and they're secluded. No one's going to be out there looking around in the forested area for them.
Those and pipelines, I think, are big with travel with these things. That town, I talked to a gentleman. We were talking about the pipeline that's over there, and he was talking about how he had all these mountain lions in his backyard, like 5 of them. I'm like, that's ridiculous. And then he showed me a picture, and I was like, okay, that's not ridiculous. And it's like they literally came off that pipeline.
Wow.
Travel. We've actually caught on our trail camera, we actually caught an African lion, because where we're casting these tracks is not too far from Tiger King land, and other big cat sanctuaries. And we sent it to the game warden, and he asked us not to put that on social media, which we didn't, but we did warn the town folks, like, hey, if you're going to go out in this area with your kids, there's a lioness out here, and you need to be careful. And we kept quiet until, I think it was last summer, the summer before. Brian called me. He's like, hey, man, there was a lion spotted on 35 and Ardmore. I was like, oh, hell no. We're posting this. So we started blasting it because it was just sitting there on the median, a lion. It's like, what? So you know what? You never know what's going to be in the woods. I'll tell you that right now.
Well, that's for sure. So what do you think Bigfoot is?
When we first started doing this, I was like, maybe it's like an ape person or something. And then I started seeing signs of the intelligence, and it's like, I don't know, it's something else. And then Brian and Tim, 2 of my close guys in this, they actually had a sighting in southeast Oklahoma. And you should talk to Brian about that. I'm not going to really go into detail, but what they saw, the face was more like a Aboriginal person or a Native American, maybe an Eskimo, that kind of configuration of the face. And then we met another gentleman that was just west of that area. He saw the same thing. And then if you've ever talked to David Wilbanks, he speaks of witnesses with the same thing. But that's just that area. And then you hear other people that say it looks more like a gorilla or a monkey or whatever. So, and then people were talking about Dogman, and so I'm just like, I don't know if it's a kind of people. I don't think it's an animal, because it's just really intelligent. I mean, we look so foolish out in the woods compared to these things. They got our number. As soon as we step out of our vehicle, they're like laughing, I'm sure. Like, look at these idiots. Look how bald they are. But I really don't know what they are. Maybe it's a relic hominid. That's why I'm doing this, I guess, right?
Find out something. Yeah, for sure. So, so a lot of people have talked about, just some unusual characteristics of Bigfoot. Things like mind speak. Have you ever had anything like that happen?
No. And my honest opinion on the mind speak thing, I don't think it's a literal voice of these things saying unga bunga, come over here. I think it's a thought that gives you a feeling or an emotion, and might drive you to an area or something like that. But then you have like Les Stroud. Like Les Stroud's actually the perfect guy because he said he experienced what he thinks people think is mind speak, and he didn't want to go over there and see it. He chose not to. So I think that's what that is. I think so. But you know what? Us people, we can, like, when you're just sitting there like at a library and someone's 5 tables over peering into the back of your head, you can feel it. And you turn around and look. So it's kind of like, I think it's something like that. Yeah, definitely. And now as far as the rock throwing, yeah, I've totally witnessed that. They'll start off with little pebbles.
Tell me about the rock throwing. I hadn't heard that before. So
Oh, so I forgot what year it was. We had a big camp out near Mountain Fork River in southeast Oklahoma. And the last night, about 2:33 a.m. in the morning, something came into camp because we had a beagle with us. And, you know, they don't bark, they kind of bay. And it kind of bayed a little bit. And this dog's been silent the whole time we were out there. And Dustin, he was close to the grill. He heard something walk up and pick up the grill and close it. And I heard the footsteps in camp because we were kind of spread out everywhere. And I just thought it was one of the guys. You know, maybe you got to get up to use the restroom or whatever. But then that dog bayed off again in a weird way. And we were like, okay, something's doing. Like, because we've seen bear traps down there or bait traps and stuff. And I'm like, well, maybe it's a bear. We've actually had a bear come into camp. We actually cast his tracks. So we all get out, or most of us got out. Couldn't find anything. We found some impressions. It was very rocky and hard. And in southeast Oklahoma, it's very hard to get a track. You have to be on the banks. I mean, they always said in the Fouke Monster, you know, they stick to the creeks. I think that's true. I think they stick to the water. Water's life. And we're walking around looking, and Tim got hit right in the back of the head, right here, right kind of the head neck area with a rock. And it didn't fall from a tree. It was horizontally projected. And we were like, holy crap. And then we really started looking, and we couldn't find anything. We couldn't find nothing. We didn't hear anything walking away. But where'd this rock come from? You know, I don't think a bear threw it, or a squirrel, or what's the chances of a rock being up in a tree and then shifting and falling on somebody? That's just ludicrous. So there's been that instance. I've been out in Sam Houston National Forest with some fellas, and there were some pebbles hitting the broadside of this guy's truck, hitting the driver's side. So it wasn't like falling from a tree, being a nut or whatever, acorn. It was actually going tink. And we literally just sat there and watched it. We watched these rocks come. There's 2 ponds out there. It's called Kelly's Pond. And on the other side of the ponds is a huge drop. That berm, it drops heavily. Anything can hide back there. So I'm thinking, all I could think of was like, man, these things are back there peeking, chunking pebbles, and their aim is pretty damn good. So, and it's kind of creepy. Like,
yeah, I've heard that.
They're trying to get us to go away, or what are they doing?
Yeah. Most of the time they don't hit people with them, though. I mean, most of the time it's just, you know, a rock comes close by. So that's kind of interesting. Were you doing anything? Do you think they were trying to give you a message with that rock hitting someone?
All we were doing was like sitting around a campfire. I will tell you this, that morning, there was one other person that showed up to that area. He was a deer hunter. It was hunting season. And he got up at early morning. And I know that because he slammed his door when he was leaving, and I heard him drive off. As soon as he drove off, I started hearing wood knocks in front of me, to the side of me, behind me. It's almost like he's leaving. And it sounded like a wooden Louisville slugger. And let's just say, like us, we're holding it with both hands, and we're hitting that tree so hard that you can feel it in your wrist. It's like one of those kind of sounds. And it was creepy because I was in this little bitty tent that Amazon said was for 2 people. I think it was for a smaller person, like one. And the guy I was with was like, hey, man, how come you didn't record it? I was like, dude, I did not want to turn on anything because everything I had made sound when he turned it on. I didn't want any part of it at that moment. I just wanted to listen. And it was very creepy, super creepy. We had a very creepy time out there. That was in Texas. So the rock throwing, I believe it. Tree knocks, rock throwing. The mind speak, I think, is a intuition, a feeling. And I think we're just dealing with something that's way smarter than us when it comes to being in the woods.
So, while you're camping out, obviously they were surrounding you because you heard knocks from all around the area.
Mhm.
Did you get a sense that they were observing that camp out or close by?
Yeah. Yeah, I think they had an emphasis on him because then that night he was, taking out his weapons and looking at them. It's like he was taking inventory, getting his ducks in a row so he can take out a deer in the morning. And I think they were more interested in him than us because I think they probably know what weapons are. I'm gonna say, um, and I think we were just like less of a threat because that second night it was just Joe De Hoyos and myself, and that was a Thursday. So people are at work. No one's really camping. It was beginning of October, just when the weather shifted. It was just getting a little cool, and we had quite the night. We were actually, and I didn't take any firearms. I slept with one of his guns that night because the activity around us was ridiculous. The wood knocks, we heard stomps or thumps, uh, sound vocals, and we were literally back to back to back. We made our fire as big as possible. We wanted to light up the joint, just we didn't want anything sneaking up on us. And Joe was sleeping in his truck that night, and I was still in that stupid little tent. But I had that gun like literally on my chest, just like, oh god. It was actually that was my first time doing anything, so I was just like, oh my god, please.
So have you ever
But
had them come up to into your campsite? I've heard a lot of people that are camping out and they're in their tents and they can hear them kind of moving around the campsite.
just that night when Tim got hit in the back of the head, where we could hear it walking around. And you know what? It is they are so swift, and I'll give you an instance of that too. December, I went to a property. These people live off the grid. They've got some kids. The kid had a visual. The wife has seen these things. Their neighbor across the road is the old lady. She's had two of her large generators totally, completely destroyed. And she says she's always shooting at the dark people at night. So that's kind of scary living next to her as it is. But we searched their area that day and we found these cedar trees that were, I'm not peeled like a banana, but the branches were broken almost like it made a carousel enclosure. And I have pictures of this. Um, and it was really, really interesting. And I was like, we're going to come back tonight and do a night investigation, stick around and kind of see what the activity's like out there. And I was like, we'll be out there probably about 10. We didn't want to wake them up. They got kids, just kind of creep in. But then they ended up calling me about 8:30 and they're like, there's something outside of our home and it's making some noise and it's kind of coming through our home and like into our chest. And they were kind of tripping out about that. And I was like, okay, we're on our way. So when we got there, we creeped in neutral, just literally probably like 10, 15 yards from their front door. I literally think we snuck up on these guys because uh, Bill and Gus went to go talk to the owner of the home. Darren was messing with his noise canceling headphones, which they were enhancing, but it was windy and he couldn't hear anything. He was just trying to fiddle with those. He was about 5, 6 yards from me. So I'm in the back of the Jeep getting my audio equipment out. As soon as I turn left, boom, 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 boom. Seven, doom, 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 doom. Gone. Swift. You could feel it in the ground. Couldn't find this thing. My heart was up here. And I couldn't even tell the guys. I was like, like we ended up going back that way and you could hear something moving around. And it just felt like this thing was toying with us. Like we're toddlers in a store and you can hide behind the aisles and stuff or something. I don't know a good example for that, but we just felt like we were useless. Like, there's multiple eyes and ears out here. So where is this guy? And so not even 2 weeks ago, I talked to those owners. They told me that right there where I heard all that, just a little bit beyond that, they could see two dark silhouettes out there running around. And I think they're maybe juvenile, maybe something like that, not a full adult that's intuitive to what we can do and how destructive we are on Earth. So I don't know, that area is definitely a place I'll be going back to. But yeah, they came into camp, and they're like, what they always say, they're like ninjas of the woods. Yeah, they're ninjas of the woods.
That's what I've heard. And I've also heard, a lot of people have seen them cloak. What do you think about that?
Floating,
Cloaking. Yeah, they
cloaking.
disappear.
Oh, I don't dismiss anything because I wasn't there to see that. I haven't seen that for myself. I have seen some very strange footage that's been sent to me that I can't explain or debunk. Um, I mean, God, a billy ape. They've got footage of a billy ape on camera. It literally steps back, I don't know, 10 feet and to the left, and he disappears. I mean, it could be a natural thing. It could be the way their hairs are, the way the light hits it. I don't know. You know what? We don't have a specimen. So we're all still at step one. No matter what anybody says or says they're an expert, I don't think so. We still don't have anything to study.
No, there isn't anything known, at least. That's
I'll tell you this much though. Brian pulled two hairs out of that 2018 spring footprint directly out of the footprint, almost like a hair was around the foot, and when it stepped, it popped out and it left that two hairs there. One we sent to Meldrum, which was a lost cause, and we don't know where our hair is. The other one, we've teamed up with, I don't know if you've heard of this guy. His name's Darby Orcutt. He's a professor at the North Carolina State University. He's put together a team of scientists in different practices and disciplines, and they want to tackle this subject matter. And they've got our other hair, and they've already got one hair before that that's in its second stage of testing. And what he's trying to do is just try to get whatever that DNA sequence is, he's going to get it. And now he's got two examples with the hairs. And if he's got something similar there, then he's got something. Not only that, in 2020, I dug up a footprint, the dirt. I took the dirt that it stepped on with me, and I did what he told me to do, which was to store it in food containers in a dark, cool place. It's been there since then. And I've talked to him multiple times about this. Like, we always shed skin cells, like everything sheds skin cells. These things have to also. If they're stepping on this sand and dirt, that's got to act as some kind of like loofah or something. Something's got to be in there. So that's why I took the dirt. And I've been talking to Darby and about this. I mean, that's my theory, and he's taken me up on it. So they've teamed up with a zoo. They're going to go to the gorilla enclosure. When the gorilla walks on the ground, they're going to grab that ground. The gorilla's right there. They're going to go find that gorilla's DNA in that dirt and develop that technique. If they do that, they're taking this dirt, and that dirt should match up with that hair and that other hair.
Well, that's interesting. You'll have to keep us informed on
Sure.
what they discover on that, because
I will.
I
I
think
will. I will keep everybody informed. We will, because that's what we do. We don't try to make a bunch of money and be on TV. We already shot down the TV thing. That's ridiculous. The stuff they want you to do. So all these shows you're watching, just be mindful. Take it with a grain. Trust me.
that's what I've heard.
Yeah, and we will share, because that's what we do. We're Southern Bigfoot Alliance. We've aligned ourselves with other people, other groups in the South, and we all share. And that's the way it should be, is we all work together, not one person over here making all this money and discrediting everybody else's evidence, because that happens all the time. And it's ugly, and I'm like, I've got a job. This is not my job. This is my hobby. I love it. Freaking love it. And I can't wait to prove something.
What do you think in the terms of people seeing a lot of unusual lights or orbs? Have you ever seen anything like that out there in your numerous hours in the woods?
Sure have. In Mena, Arkansas, we saw an orb or a light, whatever you want to call it, deep in the woods. We tried to debunk it. Nope. That's what it was. That was an orb or a light kind of dancing in the woods out there. It was bright. And I think that totally goes with these entities. Totally. I mean, Ron Moorhead's got all kinds of odd things he's witnessed out there in his area. So I wouldn't discredit that at all.
What color was this? What color was this light? This orb?
Oh, this one it looked like a white. a white light, but almost bluish-ish. You know what I'm talking about? Like it's a white light, but it almost seems like there's a hint of blue in there or something.
Mhm. And how big was it?
That I couldn't tell. It was pretty out there in deep into the. So this property we were on backs into the Ouachita National Forest. So this person's got 40 acres, and it literally blends right into the national forest. And it was way out there, but it was that bright that we could see it in between the trees. I mean, it caught all of our attention. We were all just, it was the middle of the night. We were just looking at that, like, what in the hell is that? And so we even jumped in our vehicles to drive around as far, just to see if there was anything that could penetrate that kind of light into the woods. Uh, we just couldn't do it. We just couldn't find anything that made sense to make that light be out there like that. I have seen footage where there was a light going up a tree and it got to the top branch and it's almost like it set on the branch. And then when it took off, the branch went. So I don't know what, I don't know what that is, but there's too many witnesses to say, nah, it's just nothing. That's something. There is something. Oh,
Yeah.
in December, when we were out there on that property, and we actually did some other things too. We've got an area out there we investigate and try to do research. On the way to that property, we turned. See, was it Highway 63? I know you probably don't know this, but there's Highway 63 goes into 259 near Smithville and southeast Oklahoma. And as soon as we turned right in the sky, not even another pine tree length up in the sky, was a disc, amber lights twinkling around it. It was ridiculous. And not only did I see it, another team that was out there saw it too in their little area, which was not too far from where we were going. And you just don't know. You don't know what's out there. You don't. Um, I'm not correlating that with Bigfoot, but it was very ominous the way it moved, almost like it was like scanning the woods or something. I don't know. I even went back during the daytime just to see if it was like a tower or something man-made that's just there that I've never noticed before. And maybe at night it illuminates that way. I don't think so. It wasn't that at all. And when I got back, I also had another fella send me a video that also goes out to the area. And now it's in the distance, but it was twinkling just like what we saw with amber colored lights. So
A lot of craft and lights and orbs and unusual phenomena that's seen in wooded areas. And
mhm.
like you said, I don't know if it's because Bigfoot's there or if it's just the wooded area seems to be where they kind of migrate. I did hear a
Yeah.
story the other day about a large orb light, swooping down into a forest, that area just above the forest, and then just dropped these smaller orbs of light down into the forest. That was very strange.
That is very strange. There's something to the woods. There's a natural energy there's no telling. It's fascinating. I think if you're just staying at home and sitting on the couch, you're missing some stuff. I mean, you can watch it on TV, but you're just going to hear it through their narrative. You need to get out there and experience it yourself
In
if you
times
really want to get
past,
into it.
there's a lot of folklore around the
Mm-hmm.
idea that that natural things, even rocks and forest and caves
Mm-hmm.
and everything has its own spirit. And some people think that that a lot of these beings that we're seeing has to do with that spirit world of nature.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I mean, the main people we need to talk to about all this is Native Americans. They know. They know stuff. They don't always want to share everything, but they know. They know stuff. I mean, you can't discredit an idea that they put out there when you've got a tribe way, way, way up north and a tribe way, way, way down south, and in their culture and in their art and their drawings, they show this big hairy thing. It's not like they sent an email back in the day. Hey, this is the new memo. Big hairy guys on the wall. You know, it, I mean, how do you? They know. They have to.
There's a lot of Native American legends about the hairy man, the stone
Mm-hmm.
man, all kinds of terminology that they've used about that. But and true as well. They do see spirit in things and in all of nature. So yeah, I think they probably had kind of a grip on a lot of things that we don't know or understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree.
So, any paranormal activity while you've been doing this? I've had some people report that once they got involved in the Bigfoot phenomenon, it seemed like a lot of unusual things started happening.
Yeah. Me personally, no, not for me. Brian, that guy is like, I call him a conduit. Like everywhere he goes, there's like the weirdest stuff happens to him, especially when he goes on like a solo camp trip. Like he did a New Mexico trip not too long ago. Was it maybe a year and a half ago or something? He had the weirdest paranormal experience in this empty campground that he fled that area. Like he's like, I had to get the hell out of there. Uh, I don't know if he's like tagged with paranormal stuff. I don't know, but we do have an area we call Homestead out there in southeast Oklahoma, and we call it that because we found evidence of like old nails, just like there might have been a structure there, that kind of evidence. And Brian won't camp out there at all. He says he just sees things swooping down at him and walking up the road, and he won't stay out there. So he's the guy you probably need to talk to about that. Me, I don't know. Like Brian and I went to Ron Howard was born in a hospital in Duncan, Oklahoma, old hospital, and this ex Air Force lady purchased it, and it's haunted. Like she's like, this place is haunted. So we actually went and checked it out one night, and I just went off by myself because I'm like, if we're gonna do it, let's do it. And I believe in God, God-fearing man, and I think just that protects me from those kinds of entities and whatnot. I didn't experience anything, but other people. I mean, we had some ghost guys out there. They were catching stuff on their what do they call it? What do they call it? That little box that kind of goes through the channels. I mean, I was standing right there. I heard it myself. It was responding to them. The air shifted and got cold, but that was because they were there. But by myself, I didn't catch anything. I even in one of the rooms they had one of those little nurse collars. You know, it doesn't work. It's been dead forever. I kept pushing that and saying, we need a nurse in whatever this room is just to see if anything would, you know, happen. And I got nothing. So, but I don't discredit it. I think paranormal stuff does happen around these things.
Well,
Are they
going back
paranormal?
to
I don't know.
the meadow that, as you called it, or whatever you call that field, the homestead.
Yeah.
Yeah, where Brian was, and he could see things. Were you ever there with Brian whenever he was seeing these things, but you couldn't see them?
No, I wasn't with him on that. He was with like, we have a pretty large group, so we kind of will do like investigations spread out. Sometimes we line up, sometimes we don't. Um, he was out there with what was it, Renee at the time, and actually he took a picture of her walking up the road, and you could see something behind her that's really dark and tall, like coming up the road, like almost with her or directly behind her. That freaked me out a little bit. I was like, that's kind of crazy looking, man. So no, I haven't personally been out there with him, but yeah, Brian would never make anything up like that, and he's got proof.
Yeah, a lot of people do, and it does seem to be kind of a, an either or kind of thing. Either you do see stuff or
Mhm.
you don't see stuff. It seems to blend. Even though I have heard a few people that have, just once in a lifetime seen something that they couldn't explain ghost wise
Mhm.
or otherwise. But it
Yeah,
does seem like a lot of people, once they see them, it just continues on throughout their whole life. They're kind of born that way.
yeah. I think you're right. I think you're born with the perception to actually see this kind of phenomenon and whatnot.
Yeah, this we're not all built exactly the same, and our
Mhm.
perception levels are different, and we don't have any idea what's around us all the time that we just don't even know about.
And that's why we have a team of our guys. We're all completely different thinkers. And I think that's what makes us successful in what we're doing, because we all have a different take or look on the subject matter. And we don't always agree. Like Brian, that's my buddy, that's my brother. I love this guy. He lives in Oklahoma. My best friend lives in Oklahoma. And uh, we don't agree on everything. No, oh no. We get into some long discussions on how we don't agree.
So your view is until we have an actual specimen, we're not going to be able to really have a lot of information about Bigfoot that's for real, and and of course debunking the idea that Bigfoot isn't real. Of course, that would kind of take that out of the water as well.
Yeah.
Once someone does potentially have a specimen, a Bigfoot specimen, what do you see that they should do with it? Because I've heard a lot of different ideas about what should be done and what shouldn't be done if a body is retrieved.
I think if someone finds a body, or if your team finds a body or whatever, if you're into it, have a contingency plan of some sort. Because I think there's certain, should I say, networks or whatever, they don't want this out. I think it would affect the forestry industry and all kinds of things. I mean, an endangered frog can shut down clear cutting, I mean, just imagine families that could be human out there, and we're tearing down their homes. So I think that's a huge part of it. You know what? I think it's money. It's always about money. Someone's going to lose money if we find out these things are truly out there, and they are mostly human or whatever they are, which I'm kind of leaning towards a human aspect. Um, and it's just like the people on TV. You got evidence better than them, it's fake.
So you think that if someone finds something, there could be those organizations or people that would just want it debunked, and not even if it was a specimen, they just wouldn't want it to get out there.
I don't think it would ever make it if someone actually found a really good one, and then they were like, okay, I gotta show this to whatever government or whatever. I don't think it would ever make it to the public eye. I mean, look how long it took for UFOs to become something that people can actually say, oh, okay. It took the Navy coming out with that Tic Tac video where that craft was making our awesome aircraft look like nothing, zipping around, making us look like we're on kids' toys. So I think it's going to take maybe a whistleblower. I don't know.
What would you
I know
do if
what
you
would I
found a
do?
Bigfoot tomorrow? What would you do with it?
We have a plan. I don't know if I want to even say that, because uh, the wrong ears might hear it and it might shut us down before we even get to that point. I'm not saying we're ever going to. I mean, I've never even seen a bear carcass or skeleton in the woods. And I've been out there for what, 8 years? 8 years I've been out in the woods. 6 years out in what we call the creek, casting tracks. So been doing it for 8 years. Never seen a bear skeleton, nothing like that. It's a big animal. So I don't know if we'll ever see one. I think my fear.
Have you heard of kind of like the Men in Black kind of thing with UFOs? Is
Oh
the Men
yeah,
in Black coming and talking to Bigfoot people and telling them, hey, lay
you
off,
can't
don't
say
do
that.
this.
Yeah, like you saw a bear. That's what you saw. Yeah, I've heard that. It's like a bully. It's like a two-man bully system. I've heard of one of them being looking professional and the other one looking a little intimidating. And they approach, and you're like, where the hell these guys come from? How do they know what we're doing? But they tell you that's what you saw and that's what you did and that's it. And I can believe that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Talked to too many people that have done presentations at conferences and whatnot, and they've had things in their presentations that were like that, but a little different for a different subject matter. So yeah, I think it's an organized uh, collective that does this. We actually had I'm gonna give you a good example. We had a fella come on our Cryptoholic show, which is something we do unscripted. It's not planned. It's just kind of like what Brian and I do. We had a fella come on and talk to us about his area in Colorado and his experience. Oh, and what he saw also looked very Aboriginal or Native American. And We call him Colorado Craig. And his spot that they go into, they're just hunting. They're just hunters. That's all they do. It's a 7-hour hike into base camp. And so that just totally throws the whole people thing, out the window. And after he got off our show, he started getting phone calls from numbers he couldn't call back. And they were asking him to disclose where he's seeing these Bigfoot. And I mean, I'm not going to tell you how he answered it because I don't want him to get into any more trouble. But he was like, man, I should have never came on you guys' show. I should have never said anything about this. And I was like, damn, that's pretty crazy. That's pretty wild that you got targeted like that off of one show. So, and we're just regular dudes just talking. It's not like we have this big broadcast production. And someone's out there keeping tabs.
That's for sure. There is probably someone keeping tabs. I know, I mean, I've done UFO research since, since the 90s. So, and they were definitely keeping tabs on UFO stuff. The Bigfoot stuff is only a year and a half down the road from me, but I'm hearing that more and more that, the Bigfoot evidence, Bigfoot stuff, that there's a little intimidation process going on there as well. A question I have for you, I've just written a book and it's about the connections between, kind of paranormal things, ghost activity, UFOs, orbs, lights, and the Bigfoot phenomenon now kind of brought into that whole thing. How much do you think all of this relates to one another?
Man, that's a tough question. I don't know, because then you have things that are like shapeshifters, and then you got the dogman phenomenon, which I've seen pictures that'll blow your mind. And it's like, there's no way in hell you can discredit that. That's what you're seeing right there. I don't know. I think I really don't know. I have no idea. I think it's a possibility. Yeah. But like seeing an aircraft, UFO aircraft coming in and dropping a Sasquatch off, and he's shaking hands with a chupacabra. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to think of that. Do I think it's possible? Yeah, of course. I mean, look what we're doing. We're looking for some really strange things in the woods that people will laugh at you for. Until you start showing them tracks and ways that these things are organic, and then their minds are blown. But I think there's a possibility. I don't know. I think they're still kind of separate. I think there are entities that can cross over into all those subject matters just because they're a shape-shifting type of phenomenon. It's so tough. You stumped me.
And sometimes I've heard that it's a dimensional thing that we just can't see into that dimension, but they may be unique beings from those various dimensions or various energies from those dimensions, but we just can't see them. But every now and then, maybe somehow our paths cross and they're able to get into, our dimensional awareness, or we're able to cross over into being able to see their dimensional awareness. It's hard to say.
It is hard to say. There's just no hard evidence. Like, okay, let's say we had a specimen and we got into his brain, and then we're like, what is this? Oh my God, what is this thing? What does it do? Touch the part of the brain and something across the room goes invisible. I don't know. We got to have some hard evidence, some specimens, and maybe there are, and we're just being left in the dark. And that's why I'm on this podcast and we're talking about this stuff, because we want answers, damn it.
Of course. And I think that just that keeps us moving and going and looking for more things that enable us to have a greater understanding. Something's going on. All of these people cannot be experiencing all of these various beings and them not have some reality there. There has to be. Not that many people are hoaxing and making it all up.
Now there's something, I don't know if you listen to Sasquatch Chronicles of Wes Germer, but Wes always has said something that it's always resonated with me. If you've got 10,000 people, let's say they saw Bigfoot, that sounds like a lot. But if 1% is right, then it exists.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people are saying certainly that they've had these experiences, and even yourself finding the footprints that just, human, it's beyond what a human being would or could potentially create. It looks very natural. Well, I thank you so much for coming on the show, Shane. I really appreciate all of your everything that you've shared with me.
Mhm.
It's been fun. I've enjoyed talking with you, and I wish you
Oh,
luck in finding a specimen.
oh, thank you. When I get off here, I'm gonna email you the PDF. Maybe you can share that with people.
Sure,
They can get a different point of view on these footprints. I think it's important.
absolutely. Be happy to. Okay,
Mhm.
appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end our talk today, but thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you.